Before we begin, I need to make something very clear. Everything we discuss today is general information only. It is not personal financial advice. Your situation is unique. Always speak with a licensed financial advisor before making any decisions about your money or your retirement. Now, let's talk about something that keeps many of you awake at night. You've worked hard for decades. You've saved where you could. You've watched your superannuation balance grow, then shrink, then grow again. And now, as retirement approaches, or perhaps has already arrived, you're facing a question that feels overwhelming. How do I turn this lump sum into an income that will last? It's a puzzle, isn't it? And unlike the puzzles you might do on a Sunday afternoon, this one comes with real consequences. Get it wrong, and you could run out of money. You could lose your independence. You could become a burden to your children, which is something I know most of you would never want. I hear this fear every single day. People just like you sitting across from me, their voices shaking slightly as they ask, "Will I have enough?" And here's what makes it even harder. The rules keep changing. The goalposts keep moving. You're trying to solve a puzzle, but someone keeps shuffling the pieces when you're not looking. Inflation is eating away at your buying power. What cost you $100 5 years ago now costs you $120 or more. Your superannuation statement arrived last month, and the number looked good until you started doing the mathematics in your head, until you started wondering, how long will this actually last? You're not being silly, you're not overreacting. These fears are completely valid. Because here's the truth, you are navigating something your parents never had to face, not like this. Let me take you back for a moment. Let's talk about how retirement used to work in Australia, because understanding where we've come from helps us make sense of where we are now. 30 years ago, 40 years ago, retirement was simpler. Not easier necessarily, but simpler. If you worked for the government, for a big company, for a bank, or a council, you often had a defined benefit pension waiting for you. You knew exactly what you'd get. You worked for 30 years, and you'd receive a percentage of your final salary for the rest of your life. Guaranteed. The risk wasn't on you. The risk was on your employer. They had to make sure the money was there year after year, whether the stock market went up or down, whether inflation was high or low. That system worked for a while, but it was expensive, very expensive. And as Australians started living longer, as medical advances kept us healthy well into our 80s and 90s, those defined benefit schemes became unsustainable. So, in the early 1990s, Australia made a fundamental shift. We introduced compulsory superannuation, the superannuation guarantee. Your employer had to put money aside for you into your own account. It started at 3% of your wage. Now it's moving toward 12%. This was called the defined contribution system. You contribute, your employer contributes, the money goes into your account, and it's yours. It grows with you throughout your working life. Sounds good, doesn't it? And in many ways, it is. Millions of Australians now have retirement savings they never would have had before. But here's what changed. The risk shifted. It shifted from the employer to you. You now carry the investment risk. You carry the longevity risk, the risk of living longer than your money lasts. You carry the inflation risk. You carry the market risk. And most people weren't trained for this. You're an electrician, a teacher, a nurse, a shop owner. You're brilliant at what you do, but you were never taught how to manage a retirement portfolio that needs to last 30 years. That's the Australian context we're living in today. We've moved from a system where someone else worried about your retirement income to a system where you have to figure it out yourself. And the government, through the age pension, provides a safety net. But for many of you, it's not enough to maintain the lifestyle you've worked so hard to build. So let's talk about what you're actually trying to achieve here. Let's break down this retirement income puzzle, piece by piece. When you retire, you need to answer several questions at once. How much can I spend each year without running out? How should I invest my super? Should I take it all as a lump sum? Should I start a pension? What about Centrelink? What about tax? These questions are all connected. Answer one incorrectly, and it affects all the others. Let's start with the foundation. Your retirement income in Australia typically comes from three possible sources. We call this the three-pillar system. Pillar 1 is the age pension. This is the government safety net funded by taxpayers. If you meet the age requirements and pass the income and assets tests, you receive a fortnightly payment. It's not lavish, but it's reliable. It's indexed to inflation. It will never run out because the government guarantees it. Pillar 2 is your superannuation. This is the money you and your employers have contributed over your working life. It's your money. You control it. And this is usually the biggest piece of the puzzle for most Australians. Pillar 3 is any other savings or investments you have outside super. Maybe you own an investment property. Maybe you have shares. Maybe you have cash in the bank. This is everything else that can generate income for you. Now, here's where it gets interesting. These three pillars don't just sit side by side. They interact. They affect each other. Take too much from your super, and you might lose part of your age pension. Earn too much from your investments, and same problem. Everything is connected. Let's focus on superannuation, because for most of you, this is the big one. You've spent decades building this balance. Now you need to turn it into an income. When you reach your preservation age, currently somewhere between 55 and 60, depending on when you were born, you can access your super. But accessing it is not the same as spending it wisely. You have several options. You can take some or all of it as a lump sum. You can start an account-based pension, sometimes called an allocated pension. You can buy an annuity. You can leave it where it is and draw it down slowly. Or you can use a combination of these strategies. Each option has different tax treatments, different levels of flexibility, different levels of risk. Let me walk you through the most common choice, the account-based pension, because this is what most retirees end up using. An account-based pension works like this. You take your super balance and you move it into pension phase. The money stays invested. You don't cash it all out. But now, instead of contributing to it, you're drawing from it. You decide how much income you want each year, within certain limits. The government sets a minimum drawdown. This is a percentage of your balance that you must take out each year. The percentage increases as you get older. It starts relatively low, around 4 or 5% in your 60s, and gradually increases to around 14% once you hit 95. Why does the government do this? Because they want you to actually use your super for retirement income, not just hoard it and pass it on as an inheritance. Super gets tax concessions. Those concessions are designed to fund your retirement, not to build intergenerational wealth. But here's the beautiful part about account-based pensions. Once your super is in pension phase, the earnings on that investment become tax-free, completely tax-free. If your pension account earns $10,000 in dividends and capital gains this year, you pay zero tax on it. That's a significant advantage. And if you're over 60, the income you draw from your pension is also tax-free. No tax at all. You could draw $50,000, $100,000, and you won't pay a cent of income tax on it, as long as it's coming from a taxed super fund and you're over 60. This is one of the most generous retirement tax concessions in the world. Australia treats retirees very well in this regard, but you have to structure things correctly to get these benefits. Now let's talk about the risks, because every strategy has downsides. The biggest risk with an account-based pension is sequencing risk. This is a term you might not have heard before, but it's critical. Sequencing risk means the order in which investment returns happen matters enormously. Imagine two retirees. Both start with $500,000 in their pension. Both earn an average of 6% per year over 20 years. Both withdraw $30,000 per year. You'd think they'd end up in the same place, right? Wrong. If one of them experiences several bad years early in retirement when they're still drawing income, their balance gets hammered. They're selling investments when prices are low to fund their lifestyle. Even if the market recovers later, they've locked in those losses. They never fully recover. The other retiree gets lucky. Good returns early on. Their balance grows even while they're withdrawing. When the bad years come later, they have a bigger buffer. They end up much better off even though the average return was identical. This is sequencing risk. The order matters. And you can't control it. You can't predict when the market will rise or fall. This is the single biggest risk facing retirees using account-based pensions. The second risk is longevity risk. How long will you live? Nobody knows. You might live to 80. You might live to 100. If you plan for 80 and live to 100, you've got a problem, a very big problem. Australians are living longer than ever before. A 65-year-old man today can expect to live into his mid-80s, a woman late 80s, and those are averages. Many will live much longer. Your super needs to last. It needs to stretch across decades. Decades of inflation, decades of market ups and downs, decades of changing needs and expenses. The third risk is inflation. We talked about this earlier. Inflation is the silent thief of retirement. 3% inflation doesn't sound like much, but it cuts your purchasing power in half over 24 years. What you can buy with $30,000 today, you'll need $40,000 to buy in 10 years if inflation runs at 3%. Your income needs to keep pace, but if you're drawing from a fixed pool of money, increasing your withdrawals to match inflation means you're depleting your capital faster. It's a tightrope walk. So how do real people navigate this? Let me introduce you to Bruce and Jenny. They're not real people, but their situation is very real. I've seen it dozens of times. Bruce is 66. Jenny is 64. Bruce worked as a tradesman for 40 years. Jenny was a part-time nurse, raising their 3 kids while working casual shifts. They own their home outright in a regional city, no mortgage. That's their biggest asset, worth about $600,000, but they don't want to sell it. It's their home. Between them, they have $450,000 in superannuation. Bruce has $300,000. Jenny has $150,000. They also have $30,000 in a savings account for emergencies. They're both retired now. Bruce's knees finally gave out. Jenny wanted to retire when he did, to spend time together while they're still healthy. Good for them. That's what retirement should be about. They come to me and ask the question, how much can we spend? First, I help them work out their budget. What do they actually need? Their rates, insurance, utilities, food, petrol, a bit of travel, maybe see the grandkids interstate once a year. They work out they need about $55,000 a year to live comfortably, not extravagantly, comfortably. Can their super support that? Let's do the mathematics together. They move their super into account-based pensions, $450,000 invested in a balanced portfolio. Let's assume, conservatively, they earn 5% per year on average. That's $22,500 in earnings annually. But they need $55,000. Where does the rest come from? They need to draw down their capital. They're withdrawing $32,500 more than they're earning. Every year, their balance shrinks. At that rate, even with investment growth, their money would run out in about 17 years. Bruce would be 83. Jenny would be 81. What happens then? This is where Centrelink comes in. Bruce and Jenny likely qualify for a part-age pension right now, even with their super. And as their super balance decreases over time, their age pension entitlement increases. By the time their super runs out, they'd be receiving the full age pension, which provides a basic income for life. Is that enough? For basic living, yes. But it's less than they wanted. They'd have to cut back. No more trips to see the grandkids, no more dinners out. A much tighter budget. So we look at alternatives. What if they spent less now? What if they budgeted for $45,000 a year instead of $55,000? That's $10,000 less. Tight, but doable. Maybe they skip one big trip. Maybe they're more careful with spending. At $45,000 per year, with 5% returns, their money lasts about 24 years. Bruce is 90, Jenny is 88. Much better. And again, the age pension increases as their balance falls, providing a soft landing. Or what if they were more aggressive with investments? What if they aimed for 6 or 7% returns instead of 5? Higher returns mean their money lasts longer, or they can spend more. But higher returns mean higher risk, more volatility, more sleepless nights when the market drops. Bruce and Jenny are conservative people. They don't want to gamble. So we find a middle ground, a balanced portfolio, modest spending, a plan to review every year and adjust if needed. This is the reality of retirement planning. It's not about finding one perfect answer. It's about making trade-offs, spending versus longevity, risk versus security, lifestyle today versus safety tomorrow. Every decision is a piece of the puzzle, and the puzzle looks different for everyone. Your super balance is different, your age is different, your expenses are different, your risk tolerance is different, your health is different. That's why cookie-cutter advice doesn't work. That's why you need to think carefully about your own situation. So what can you actually do? What are the practical steps you can take today to solve your own retirement income puzzle? Step 1. Get clear on your spending. You cannot plan your retirement income if you don't know how much you need. Sit down with your bank statements, go through 6 months of expenses, work out what you actually spend on essentials, then add in discretionary spending, holidays, gifts, hobbies. Be honest, be thorough. Once you know your number, you have a target. Everything else flows from that target. Step 2. Understand your super balance and where it's invested. Log into your super account. Look at your balance. Look at your investment option. Are you in growth, balanced, conservative? Do you even know? Many people don't. They've been in the default option for decades without thinking about it. Now that you're approaching retirement or already in it, your investment strategy might need to change. You might need less growth and more stability, or maybe not. It depends on your timeline and your risk tolerance, but you need to know what you own. Step 3. Model different scenarios. There are calculators available online. MoneySmart, run by the government, has good tools. You can input your super balance, your age, your expected returns, your withdrawals. It shows you how long your money might last. Play with the numbers. What if you spend $5,000 less per year? What if returns are lower than expected? What if you live to 95 instead of 85? See what happens. It won't give you perfect answers, but it gives you a sense of what's possible and what's risky. Step 4. Look into the age pension. Even if you think you have too much to qualify, check. The rules are complex. The asset test thresholds are higher than many people realize, especially if you own your own home. You might be entitled to a part pension, which includes access to the pensioner concession card. That card saves you money on utilities, prescriptions, and more. Use the Centrelink online estimators, or make an appointment with Centrelink. It's worth knowing where you stand. Step 5. Think about your age pension strategy over time. Here's something many people miss. Your entitlement to the age pension can change as your circumstances change. As your super balance decreases, your pension entitlement increases. As you get older, the deeming rates and income test treat you differently. You might choose to spend a bit more from your super early in retirement, knowing that you'll rely more heavily on the age pension later. Or you might preserve your super carefully, accepting a lower income now to protect yourself in your late 80s and 90s. There's no single right answer, but you should think about the trajectory, not just the starting point. Step 6. Consider your investment strategy inside your pension. Just because you've moved your super into pension phase doesn't mean you stop thinking about how it's invested. You still need growth to combat inflation, especially if you're in your 60s and could live another 30 years. But you also need to protect against big losses early in retirement because of that sequencing risk we discussed. A balanced approach often works well. Some growth assets, like shares, some defensive assets, like bonds and cash. Diversification is your friend. And here's a tip. In years when the market has done well, consider withdrawing a bit more. Build up your cash reserves. Then, in bad years, you can draw from cash instead of selling investments at a loss. This is called a bucket strategy, and it can help smooth out the volatility. Step 7. Don't forget about tax. I mentioned earlier that pension income is tax-free if you're over 60. That's true, but other income might not be. If you have investment properties, that rental income is taxable. If you have shares outside super, those dividends are taxable. If you do some casual work, that's taxable. Understanding your total tax position helps you make smarter decisions. Maybe it makes sense to keep more in super and less outside super. Maybe it makes sense to delay accessing certain investments until you're in a lower tax bracket. Small tweaks can save you thousands. Step 8. Plan for aged care. Nobody wants to think about this, but it's part of the puzzle. Aged care in Australia can be expensive. If you need to move into residential care later in life, there are accommodation payments, daily fees, and means-tested care fees. These can add up quickly. Having a plan for how you'd fund aged care if needed gives you peace of mind. Maybe you'd sell your home. Maybe you'd use a reverse mortgage. Maybe your super balance will still be large enough to cover it. Think about it now while you're healthy, so you're not making rushed decisions in a crisis. Step 9. Talk to a professional. I know I said at the start this isn't personal advice, and it's not, but you should get personal advice. A licensed financial advisor can look at your complete situation, model different strategies, and help you implement a plan tailored to you. Yes, it costs money, but the value of getting this right is enormous. We're talking about decisions that will affect the next 20 or 30 years of your life. An advisor can help you navigate Centrelink, optimize your tax, structure your investments, and give you confidence that you're on the right track. Not all advisors are created equal. Look for someone who specializes in retirement planning, someone who charges transparent fees, someone who listens to you and explains things in plain language. Don't be afraid to interview 2 or 3 before you decide. Step 10. Review regularly. Your retirement income plan is not set and forget. Life changes, markets change, rules change, your health changes, your spending changes. Set a reminder to review your situation every year. Check your super balance, check your spending, check whether your strategy still makes sense, adjust if needed. Small course corrections along the way prevent big problems down the track. And here's something important. Be flexible. Some years you might spend a bit more because you're healthy and you want to travel. Other years you might spend less. That's okay. Retirement isn't a straight line. It's a journey with ups and downs. The goal is not to die with the most money in the bank. The goal is to live well, for as long as you live, without running out. That's the puzzle you're solving. Now, let's bring this home. Let's talk about why you're doing all of this in the first place. You've worked hard, decades of early mornings, long days, sacrifices. You've raised families, built careers, contributed to your communities. You've earned this time. You've earned the right to slow down, to enjoy life, to do the things you never had time for when you were working.
This is your third act. The first act was growing up, learning, finding your way. The second act was working, raising a family, building a life. And now, the third act. This is your time. But here's the tragedy I see too often. People are so worried about money, so stressed about running out, that they forget to actually live. They scrimp and save every dollar, terrified to spend anything, and they miss out on the very experiences retirement is supposed to provide. Yes, you need to be careful. Yes, you need to plan. Yes, you need to make your money last, but you also need to live. You need to see your grandchildren. You need to take that trip you've always dreamed about. You need to enjoy your hobbies, your friends, your freedom. Money is a tool. It's not the goal. The goal is a good life, a life filled with meaning, connection, joy. The money is there to enable that life. So here's my final piece of advice. Plan well, but don't obsess. Get your retirement income strategy sorted. Understand your options. Make informed decisions. Put the pieces of the puzzle in place, and then let it go. Trust the plan. Live your life. Check in once a year. Adjust if needed, but don't spend every day worrying about the share market or your super balance. That's no way to live. You've done the hard work. You've built something. Now it's time to enjoy it. The puzzle doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be good enough. Good enough to give you security. Good enough to give you freedom. Good enough to let you sleep at night. And remember, you're not alone. Millions of Australians are navigating this exact same journey. The rules might feel complicated, but there are resources available. There are professionals who can help. There are government programs designed to support you. You don't have to have all the answers today. You just have to take the first step. Understand your spending. Understand your super. Understand your options. The clarity will come. And when you're lying on a beach somewhere, or playing with your grandkids, or finally reading all those books you never had time for, you'll be glad you took the time to get this right. You'll be glad you solved the puzzle. Because retirement isn't something to fear. It's something to embrace. It's the reward for all those years of hard work. It's your time. Make it count. Before we finish, let me remind you one more time. Everything we've discussed today is general information only. It is not personal financial advice. Your circumstances are unique. Always seek professional advice tailored to your situation before making financial decisions. Thank you for your time. Thank you for listening. I hope this has helped bring some clarity to the retirement income puzzle. Take it piece by piece. You'll get there. I believe in you.